Alright, so 2 more packages arrived today. I think they're both from Edge Auto, but I'm not 100% sure. The little one's definitely from Edge. Oh, this one's from JBR. Sweet. So there's a silicone intake boot. There's the boot to connect it to the turbo. Came with all the clamps needed to attach. And the piece still of resistance. The intake tube itself. Very nicely packaged. Put you guys down. Beautiful, nice color. Got another piece of tape here. And there she is. Yep, so it looks like the PVV will have to be rerouted. The valve cover. And then this fellow will go down here like this. And it looks like it'll most likely connect to the stock location where the MAF is sitting. So I was a little concerned about that. But true 3-inch all the way back. So can't wait to put this in. It's raining today, so we're not going to get to it today. But so it's the next day. We're going to go ahead and install the intake today. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put, I got this little lapel mic right here, and I'm going to put it inside, hopefully, so I'm going to put it inside the engine bay so we can get some stock intake sounds off of it. And then once I get the intake on, I'll do another drive so you guys can hear the difference between the 2 intakes. It is it's a very high pollen day. It's still spring, so you can see the car is pretty filthy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually drive to the car wash, and I'll have you guys in the engine bay on the drive over, and then yep, and we'll go from there. Okay, so I got as close to the intake as I could, but you guys are going to just have to stare out driver's side door because the cord won't reach far enough to put you guys in the windshield. So we're back from the car wash. The lapel mic didn't actually work on my cell phone, so yep, I'll insert the clip anyway. just so you guys can at least hear a little bit of it. But it didn't really do what I thought it was. So for the install, it should be fairly simple. The hardest part is going to be getting back here to the piece of this intake that bolts to the turbo, because it's way down in there. And really, to make it easy, I should take this cowl off. So to take the cowl off, you take the windshield wiper off, this screw right here, then these clips just come off, and then there's a bolt right there on each side. So I think that's what I'm going to do. And alright, so I got you guys set up here with what I think is going to be a good angle. The way we're going to rock with this video is I'm going to just explain what I'm doing, and then I'm going to do it and fast forward it. So I am going to take this vacuum line off right here just to get a little clearance, and it just pulls off. No biggie. And then we got to get this clamp off right here. We're going to use this elbow. Then we're going to get this clamp off right here. We got to take this bolt off here. These two bolts right here. And then I'll go to the cowl portion. And there's one more thing I want to cover about that. So when I get to that, I'll stop the Speedy Gonzalez video and go over what I'm doing. So alright, that looks like a good angle. Here we go. Let's do it. Alright, so it's a 7 on this one, an 8 on this one, which we're not going to touch. And I'm just using a screwdriver for this fella. I'm hoping I can yank it off there. We're going to use our 12mm on this post. Alright, so now for the fun part. So we're going to have to get this valve off right here. You see it? So what you do is you pinch it from the top and the bottom. You should be able to just wiggle it off. So that's the vent for the valve cover. See, it comes off the valve cover right here, goes through there and back into your intake. So I'm gonna get that off. Here we go. For your windshield wipers, it's a 15mm bolt right here that you have to take off. And I don't know if you can catch it in camera, but I actually took a Sharpie and ran a line up the stud and ran a line down along the windshield wiper itself. So when you go to put it back on, you can make sure it's orientated properly. Then again, we just got to pull these two covers, this bolt here, and then there's a bolt behind these covers, and then that whole cowl should just come right out. So for the windshield wipers, we're going to have to do some wiggling and jiggling, and I'm going to set you guys up here, try to anyway, get you a good angle on what I'm doing. Alright, so they are spined, so you're just going to have to go for it. Push and wiggle, push and wiggle. It'll come off, I promise. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side, and then I'll come back on with this thing to be a 3-hour long video. So I'm gonna pause it here, get the cowl off, and I'll come back. If I run into any issues, I'll stop and let you know. Alright, so these are T27 Torx. And like I said, with the windshield wipers, man, don't be afraid of them. You won't break them. You just gotta wiggle, jiggle, and go for it. They'll come off of there. So T27 Torx. And I already have my Symposer deleted, so if you don't have your Symposer deleted, you're going to have to unhook your Symposer. It will plug in right here. Harbor Freight, guys, I love this tool. Pittsburgh swivel head. Alright, now you got to clearance your windshield washer hose. Just a little clip goes in on the side here. But this should just lift up and come right out of there now. Real nice and easy. So that is a two-piece, and I did not have to undo that T27 Torx, but I did it anyway. So now you should be able to look way down in there and see the hose clamp that I'm going for. And I don't see it. There it is. Right in there. You can barely see it. But that is going to be fun. So I'm gonna go ahead and just go for that, and I'll come back when I have it off, and I'll let you know if I run into any further issues. This is the move. We're going to put this fellow on the turbo, tighten this clamp. We're going to try to leave him somewhere easier to get to, and then we're going to put this clamp on, stuff the intake tube down inside of it, and then we'll come back and get that fella next. So I'm gonna wrestle with that and come back. What I'm doing is I'm putting this clamp on here and kind of getting it where I want it, and then I'm tightening it up just enough to where it doesn't move. Because once you put it on there, and it'll slide, this slides on the turbo side real nice and easy. But once you put it on there, it's hard to keep this clamp up and turn it to tighten it at the same time. So I'm giving it a little bit of grip, then it should still slide over the turbo. If not, I'll go get some hairspray. Again, hairspray's flammable, so it shouldn't really hurt anything, but it'll make this nice and slippery. You can slide it on, and then the hairspray dries sticky, so it'll make sure that it doesn't leak. Oh yeah. See, so it's still up there. The clamp's still up there, and it popped on the turbo real nice. All right, so that clamp turned forever. So I must have turned this thing a million times. Don't be afraid to turn it. You don't have to torque the living stuff out of it, but you gotta make sure it's tight so you don't have any vacuum leaks. All right, so my next move is going to be to prep the intake tube. And like I said, we're going to have to reuse the grommet that came off of there. So the way that's going to work is we're just going to take and push this center piece out, and you can use your hand. See, it comes out real nice and easy. Then we're going to have to wiggle this fella into this hole. We should probably get a screwdriver or something. But you want to be careful with this flange. It's real kind of bendy. So then the flat part comes in from the bottom. Bang, boom, pow. Then you want to make sure you put your flange on first. And I'm going to angle it in such a way that I can get to it. Then we can take our intake tube and try to fish it into the silicone. And I'm going to go ahead and call that a win. So that's what that's going to look like. So now the only move we have left is to reconnect the PVV and then put this little blue fella. We're going to make sure that the JBR faces down, and he's going to go in here and connect like that. And then that should be it, and then we'll take a test drive and see how she sounds. Alright, I'm actually just going to let y'all watch. I'll probably speed through this, but yeah, we'll get you an angle to where you can see most of what's going on. Okay, so Be careful with your intake, guys. I've already scratched it up. This is sharp metal, so that fella's not going to snap all the way back on, and that's as far as I can get it. So I hope that doesn't cause any issues, but we'll fire it up and see what's going on. Alright, so what I did there was I got it tight enough to where the clamp wouldn't move again. That was, whew, such a pain. So that's going to be the hardest part of this, is just getting the turbo side done. For the most part, we're finished. All we got to do is get this blue boot on right here between the elbow with the MAF in it. And, yep. Then we can take her for a rip and see what she sounds like. We still have to put our cowl back on and our windshield wipers, and I got a couple tips for you on how to get your windshield wipers back on too. So now this is supposed to be the easiest part. So what we're going to do first is put a clamp up on here, and I want to have this orientated to where you're not going to see the bolt, but at the same time I can get to it with my impactor. So I think I'm going to leave it around the back there, but we'll get to that in a second. First things first, let's put this fella on here. We might have to maneuver this. So pull this strap right here. You shouldn't have to take all this out, but it's just going to make it easier. So your upper and lower intake tubes, I'll take those out, and then you should be able to maneuver your intake canister. I gotta clean this anyway. This just clips in. Should be able to just pull it up. Yep, there's a clip there, and then there's a clip down here. Should just come out of there, but it's fighting me. So, no worries. Got it out of the way just enough so I can clearance my boot. Then I want to put it back down to where it's supposed to go, so that I can maneuver it to get it on this elbow. Now this elbow doesn't turn, so see, it's bolted in right there. So you're going to have to finagle with your boot to make it fit. There we go. Oh, and you know what I did? I messed up, people. I didn't put the other clamp on, so here's my clamp. So now I got to take this whole thing apart. I'll back off of here anyway. I'll try to finagle this clamp back on here. Without destroying my MAF sensor. Alright, here we go. So both clips are on. Alright. Not too shabby, people. It's coming in. There we go. Alright, so I'm going to tighten the bottom one up first because it's not 100% on the bottom of the elbow. So I'm going to have to hold it on and zip it on there at the same time. So if you don't have one of these, I suggest you get one. This is a Ryobi. It's pretty cheap. I use it at home. All my home tools are Ryobi because they are cheap and they don't see that many man hours or working hours. So what we're going to do here is, again, we're going to tighten this up just to where it's tight on the boot. And as you can see, there's a lot to tighten there. So I went a little too far. But we want to hold this over the can and tighten it at the same time so we can force it on there. And there you go. So that one's on. And as you can see, there is a lot of screw left coming off of that clamp. So these things, they screw in forever, man. So they start off like this all the way out and they end up like that. So that's why it took me so long to get the turbo side done. So here we go. This is the final clamp. We'll pop the air filter in here and we'll start her up, see how she sounds. Put this battery cover on just so I don't electrocute myself. Alright, there she is. Then reconnect our vacuum line. There we go. And I believe we cleared something over here. It was this. Alright, so we don't need it. So moment of truth. Let's go ahead and start this bad boy up and see how she sounds. Alright, so there it is, the JBR intake. Now I went with this intake because it's the cheapest one on the market. I think it was 250 bucks. And I'd already bought the green filter as kind of a for now mod. My intention is to eventually get the CPE intake, but this will do for now. It looks pretty good. We'll go ahead and get this button back up right here. I'll get the cowl back on with the windshield wipers, and then when I get to the windshield wipers, I'll cut back in and show you guys what I got. Because right now, the windshield wiper motors should have rehomed. So when you start the car, and then if you give a little click on the windshield wipers, the motors will go up and down and rehome. Then when you put your wipers back on, as long as you line them up with your marks. So remember, we marked it right here. And then there's a mark on the other one too. Then your windshield wipers should go back on with no problem. So, alright, let me button this thing up and we'll take it for a spin. So, everything for the most part's back in. I just got to put the windshield wipers up. Now, this thing is 2 pieces and it is a pain in the Inevitably, what I ended up by doing was putting the bottom piece on first, and then I went back and put the top piece in after, because it's got to kind of clip into your windshield seal. See, it's still kind of funky, but I couldn't get this bolt. So when you're using your mini impactors, make sure you're going in straight. So now I have to bring a tap home from work because I boogered that hole up. So if you get in there and it gets tight way before it starts to pull anything in, just stop, check your threads. It's a lot easier to stop and pull the bolt out, re-tap the hole, and go again than it is to try to drill a broken bolt out of your car. So that being said, I gotta get a screwdriver to put these clips back in because they hold the bottom to the top. Obviously they didn't do a very good job because the thing literally came apart when I was trying to put it back on. But at the end of the day, it was easier to do the bottom first. Then with this stud, you got to kind of remember where this guy came from, because it's important to get the cover back on, the engine cover back on. Also, I used one of these bushings from the old intake as a perch, because that was there before. So if you don't put that back on, then you're going to be seeing thread, and that'll also make sure that the engine cover goes back in the stock location. So I'm going to finish buttoning up the rest of this stuff, and then we'll take the first spin. I'm gonna just try to keep you guys here by the window. The microphone in the engine bay thing doesn't really work, but we'll take another quick drive and see how she sounds. I always scrape coming out of this driveway. Makes me cringe every time. Yep, you can hear the difference for sure. Not much more of a growl, but a ton more turbo noise. Yep. For the 250, was it worth it? I mean, I'd say yes. Again, it's the cheapest one out here on the market. They the CPE brand was like 400 bucks, and I mean, oh, so much more turbo noise. Jeez. So, yep. I'm running the open can on mine, so my airbox doesn't have the top on it. Main reason being, I'm on a stock intercooler, so the charge air temps on this thing are at least 20 degrees above ambient at idle, and as you increase, I've seen as much as 100 degrees above ambient on a charge air temp on a stock intercooler. Now, when my CEP Delta core gets here, my CPE Delta core gets here, that thing runs so cold, it wouldn't matter if you had the box top off either, just because it actually gets colder as you get higher in the RPM range. So, I mean, some people say you need the lid on there to keep the engine heat away, but that is pre-turbo anyway. So, to me, I don't think it matters, and you get a ton more turbo noise out of it. But, yep, so as you can hear, lots of turbo sounds coming from this thing now. It's so amazing. I'm gonna go ahead and take a nice little bit of a drive just to listen to the turbo. Thanks for watching.